Welcome to the March Tools Call. People are still joining. We'll give a few minutes for everyone to finish connecting. If you're willing, please share a video. We like for this to be a meeting around the table, but do remember that the meeting is being recorded and will appear on YouTube later. Join rate still fairly high. We'll wait for it to slow down. For those of you just joining, I'll repeat, if you're willing, please share your video. We want this to be a group meeting, but do remember that the meeting is being recorded and will appear on YouTube later. All right, it looks to me that this join rate has slowed, so we will go ahead and get started. Everyone should have a link to the notes page that we are using to track the agenda and capture the minutes for these sessions. If you don't have that, somebody can paste it into the chat. Does anyone have any last minute agenda bashes? Anything that we need to add that there is not already a item for on that agenda? All right. So under hot topics, the first thing I'd like to do is to give a broad overview of where we are for the infrastructure transition and our planning. The target date for completing this IT transition has been shifted back to the end of April. We had originally been targeting the end of March, but there were reasons to defer. Most notably, we didn't get things in place before we got into the busy part of preparation for IETF 119 for the community, and we did not want to disrupt that. The Mailman 3 transition has been deferred until post 119, but we are still doing preparatory work on IETFA, getting the actual Mailman 3 engine in place, updating the plumbing for post confirm in particular. And we'll be testing that over this week and next week, having it fully tested in staging and ready to deploy, and starting the Mailman 3 transition just shortly after 119. We have a email relay staged and should be going into production inside our new infrastructure for applications in that new infrastructure to cause email to get sent out to the community. It's an internal detail. I'm calling it out here because it's been a notable step in getting things configured for the ultimate deploys. The advantage of this relay is that when we do move the entire mail processing system onto the new fabric, that is all of the list processing, all of the alias processing, the applications that are using the relay will not have to be reconfigured. We will only reconfigure the relay to point to the new mail processing system. That new mail processing system is also in the process of just going into dev and staging with a goal of it being fully tested by the time we get to the end of 119 with a production deploy shortly thereafter, with all of the excitement that comes with moving a major source of email to a new sending set of IPs. We have notes and analytics and staging waiting production mostly on that mail relay. Analytics we will probably move during the week next week, or even later this week if we can get that far. Notes we will wait to move till after 119 as it's in heavy use for people preparing for their meeting sessions already. The big applications are being conditioned for deployment: the data tracker, mail archive, the mail processing system itself, www.IETF.org, other things that are currently served by the Apache instance that serves www.IETF.org. We're hoping to have the data tracker into staging on the new fabric in a development mode towards the end of the week, so that we can start to get good performance tests over it to validate that we've chosen the right sizing for the pods that it's going to be running on in the database instance it's going to be backing it. So we may transition services that are not immediately directed in meeting planning. We're looking at whether or not we can transition the new IEB website early. There are some private instances of wikis that may not have high activity that we may move ahead of time. But those that are involved with meeting planning, we will defer, and we will, of course, coordinate with anybody that uses these wikis before we start moving things. And finally, I'm in the process of building out a plan working with Alexi for how to move the ISO IMAP service into this new fabric. So it's just a matter of, technically it's going to be straightforward. There are several options available to us. Alexi and I are talking about what the best way to approach giving it a enabling license key. So, all right.
Robert, has ISO-DE got other customers who already use this in the web or cloud environment?
Yes. And
okay.
One of the things that Alexia is looking into is whether or not we can deploy this thing in Kubernetes, or if it needs to be deployed on its own EC2 instance directly. And that's, he's looking to see what his what other experiences are telling him. So
okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions about where we are on the infrastructure transition and the transition planning? I guess there's one bit of information that I did not capture in that update that I will call out now is the we will be moving the server that supports the RPC and provides the origin for rfceditor.org and the related websites at rfceditor.org on a different fabric. I can provide details on where off call if anybody is particularly interested. For the short period of time that it's going to continue to exist until we have the new modernized applications in place for the RPC to use instead. Okay, I'm going to move to the next topic. There's Greg, is Roman available on the call?
Yeah, I was looking, I did not see Roman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was waiting to hear back from him. I can give a quick update verbally if that'd be helpful.
Please.
The short version is that I think this is an ISG item to add a banner at the top of IDs in Data Tracker to make it clear what their status is. And I think there was agreed upon text by the ISG. I had made a suggestion about the pointer to that was included as part of that HTML text, and the ISG has discussed it, but I don't think that they've come to a decision yet on it about whether or not to change the suggested pointer to something else and what it should be. So I think Roman is the token holder on this, so we can chase him down.
And he's, it's a very busy time for all of the ISG, but for Roman in particular. So we'll move that along when we hear. So the next topic that I wanted to discuss was the resolution of the issue that we introduced when we deployed Feet RFC with the sudden appearance of email links that looked like RFC NNNN at IETF.org. There's an ongoing and longer term discussion about what email addresses we should provide to reach appropriate parties for the maintenance of an RFC. But for the short term, we are reverting the behavior to what the data tracker had done in the past for an RFC, which was if the RFC came from a draft, we provided the draft link that would reach all of the interested parties for that draft. So it's a little bit of a back step, but it gets us to a spot where we're not advertising email addresses that don't work, and puts us in the same state for those email addresses that we were at before we deployed Feed RFC. This has been merged and should be make it into production at this week's deploy, which will be towards the end of this week.
So, Robert, the other thing that's related to this is when somebody puts in an errata, the email addresses that are sent that the errata has been entered are related to the ones that are at the bottom of the RFC. Is there any way to grab those and do the same thing?
The long-term plan for mail from the RFC editor is to pay attention to what the data tracker knows about current addresses for people. And those addresses, the authors of the RFCs would map back into people so that we can use the curated set of addresses all the way to and including not bothering deceased authors when the survivors have asked that the addresses no longer get email. The errata system in particular is still in a state of discussion for what the next variant of an errata system would look like. But either way, the direct answer to your question is yes, we can do the right thing with these things when we get to the point. And our goal is to make sure that we are attempting to map whatever addresses were in those RFCs into the freshest addresses that we have for the people related with them.
So yes, but not for a while.
Yes. But a while might not be as long as a while sometimes has appeared in other things. This is all part of the tools modernization project, and we do really want to have this done in some small number of months. So. Any other questions on that front? All right. The next item I wanted to call out was because we had some strange mail make it into the archives. That was it was a spam message sent from a well-known participant's address, and we were investigating it, how that particular spam made it into the system. We found some things that we will be correcting, but in the process discovered that mail sent from the data tracker, the announce tool, the pretty much any application that's currently running on the existing infrastructure, sending mail directly from the infrastructure, both on our primary server IETFA and on the RPC server RSCPA. The mail going out is not DKIM signed. And recently, this has become more of a problem as the major mail silos have been closing their filters, making them more restrictive in an attempt to protect their user base from spam. So we will be addressing this carefully after 119. I'm reticent to actually make the changes before 119 in case we accidentally disrupt something that causes meeting traffic to not flow well. So that's been identified, and changes around it are coming. Anybody have any questions about it? All right. This next topic is one I'm hoping to get quite a bit of community feedback on. We have a general strategy as we are evolving our infrastructure to rely on the Internet Archive for reaching very old things instead of continuing to carry very old things forward ourselves. In particular, we are very close to turning down www.6.ietf.org, which has existed, continued to be published for quite some time because there were some proceedings links that required moving into it, and artifacts like ISG minutes and appeals and statements. The statements, some of that had moved to the main WW website, but we've recently moved all of it into the data tracker for ease of future maintenance. We believe that we are down now to the point where we can just turn WW6 off. We're doing a final verification, looking through the URLs that need to be preserved to make sure that they redirect to the appropriate content. But I expect by the end of April, WW6 will be turned off. And as we are transitioning the main website to take load off of the transition, we're looking for parts of the current www website that we really don't need to maintain. One of those is the old 2009. We're expecting to turn that off as well. We'll find other things as we are moving along, and we'll make a note about them being turned down. I wanted to point to this with a very bright spotlight to get any feedback from any community members that thinks that we might be doing the wrong thing.
Would it be helpful if I gave a little update about crawling those sites into Archive
Yes,
It?
please.
So let's see. So just for context for everybody, we're using a service that the Internet Archive provides called Archive It. And basically it's a set of tools that allows anybody to set up crawls of domains into whatever collections. Eventually that content ends up in the public Wayback Machine. at web.archive.org, but that can take a few months. So it's that is not predictable to me. But what is predictable is have we done the archive it crawl correctly? So initial crawls of like WW6 has happened. But the way these crawls work, generally speaking, is you do a crawl. It takes several days to do the crawl because we don't want to like take anybody's website down or whatever. So you do several days of crawl, and then it takes about a day or two to kind of populate into a local version of the Wayback Machine. Then you go through and you do QA and you figure out how you messed up, like what didn't get captured, et cetera, et cetera. The QA process takes a relatively long time because basically you're kind of trying to click through every possible link and figure out where the problems are. And then you create like, okay, here's a patch list, list of seed URLs and then you go crawl them and then you QA it. And then you get the idea. So it can take a few weeks to get through. So we've done the initial crawl that ended at the end of last week. And so this week I'll be doing the kind of the QA and try to get a patch crawl started. And then next week I'll do another round of QA. That's kind of where we're at right now. And Robert, obviously I will let you know when I am relatively confident that we got it.
Awesome. Anybody have any questions? Any input? Everybody is comfortable with the general strategy? All right. Then we will move on to the next session. I'll let Jennifer talk to this one.
Okay. So this is an update of, I guess, before IETF 117, when we first introduced the asynchronous submission endpoints. We gave a report on how they were being used. So as a reminder, the old data tracker up before that, when a submission came in, it was processed before the HTTP reply came back, which particularly caused problems with Cloudflare timing out. If drafts took more than 30 seconds, they would fail. So we've updated the stats on who's using which endpoints. At this point, the UI itself is only asynchronous, and the API submission that is used mostly with GitHub tracked drafts has both the asynchronous API that people should be using and the synchronous API for people who are still doing it the old-fashioned way. We've had about 2,500, the numbers are here, submissions since things opened up again during 118, and the overwhelming number of those are asynchronous, which is great. There were 10 drafts from, I think, 4, maybe 5 authors that came in the old way. So I think based on that, we're going to be retiring that endpoint, and people can get with the program, hopefully. I don't think that shouldn't be prohibitive. Things still work more or less the same. You just get your response in a different way. And we have numbers here. Nice to see that almost 89% of submissions have XML, and most of those are XML only submissions. And it looks like, I guess we're getting about a quarter of those coming in through Cramdown as their origin. I happened to also do a look at the last couple weeks before this deadline that passed on Monday, and of those, more like 40% were Cramdown based, which is perhaps an interesting split of the data. At least people who are doing it last minute are using Markdown instead of straight XML. But I think the big thing is that we're planning to shut down that synchronous API. So I think that's what I have to say. I don't know if Robert wanted to add anything else.
No, I think that's good. We will send a note to the people that submitted using the old API so that they know that their next attempt using whatever tool chain did that will fail until they update the tool chain. All right. We're now past the what I considered hot topics. For the FYI section, essentially what we have left in the notes. I would like to approach these as people have had a chance to read them ahead of time. And if anybody has any questions on any particular section in here, or there is anyone that has a highlight that they want to call out, to just do so ad hoc at this time instead of doing a linear read through. I guess I will call out, since Nick is not here, that if you have not been watching the development of the editor for the RPC to use, it is moving rapidly right now. It's got a pretty exciting UI. I encourage people to take a look at it. This would then take us to open discussion and any other business. Hi, Dave.
Yeah, I will just make the announcement. I posted to RFC Tools. Thank you, Greg, for responding that my submission to the Open Source Summit to talk about authoring and editing tools where the audience is other SDOs was accepted. I'm one of 5 speakers, and so I still got to do the slides for that. But and I will. My plan is to share the slides with this group beforehand, so you guys can review them. But it's not until like April, so you won't see those until long after IETF anyway. But if there's anybody else that wants to contribute to those slides or whatever, let me know. But otherwise, just expect that you get a chance to review them before the summit itself. But right now, I'm heads down on IETF, so again, you won't see that for a month or so. But at least, hey, that'll give us some great visibility. So, and the focus will be on authoring and editing. So basically the fact that people like author in Cramdown, and then XML is the authoritative format, and there's multiple formats that get generated from that, and there's tooling for these things. That's the type of focus that I think is going to be interesting to other SDOs, that because there's some things that we do that they can probably copy from if they're much newer than say we are. So that's my intent.
That's awesome. Thank you for all the effort you're putting into that, Dave. Any other business? If you haven't signed up for the Code Sprint already and plan to attend, please do so. I hear someone unmuted.
Yeah, this is Rich. I noticed Michael in the chat said, hey, where would we see the RPC editor? And I'll repeat the question. Oh, okay. Now it's been answered.
Yep.
I assume Michael was asking about the software editing tool that Nick is working on. I put a link to the repo.
Thanks.
All right. Well, safe travels for everyone that is traveling to Brisbane. I'll be attending remote. We'll see people online between now and then, and I'm looking forward to an exciting meeting. Well, one last thing. We typically cancel the tools call that's immediately after an IETF meeting. I'm going to leave one scheduled for the moment, anticipating that we will probably cancel it. But if something particularly interesting is going on with the transition at that time, I'll leave the spot reserved so that we can use it. So, okay. Well, thanks everyone for participating. I appreciate you taking time out of your day and for everything that everyone here does to make the internet better for the rest of the world. And we'll talk with you all soon.